Cool.
Sorry. Okay, now we can begin.
All right, cool.
So we're taking on listening today, like we always do. And today's topic is the smartphone. The smartphone, the cell phone, the mobile phone.
The mobile telephone.
The mobile telephone. What do the kids call it these days?
The cellular telephone.
Yeah.
Just the
Nicole,
phone.
Just the phone. I
Just
don't have
the
to say
phone.
mobile.
No.
Wait.
Mm-mm.
Just the phone.
No, it's a mobile phone.
From conversations to the natural world to complete silence, so many of us focus on what's next rather than what is happening now. I'm Listening is a podcast that dissects the importance of listening.
I'm Drew Richmond.
And I'm Brant Christofferson.
And this is I'm Listening, a podcast simply about the skill of listening.
To approach the subject today, Drew and I realized we needed someone else.
My name is Nicole Deere.
So we invited Nicole Deere.
I am 24, soon to be 25.
First off, she's younger than us by a generation.
I currently work as a program director at a camp in Michigan.
Second off, she works in youth development. So she is working with not just young kids, but also younger employees, again, of a different generation than Drew and I.
I went to the University of Northern Iowa, and I studied recreation, tourism, and nonprofit leadership with an emphasis in youth development and nonprofit management. And I'm excited to get to talk to you all and hear your perspectives.
What about landlines?
I had a landline for a few years growing up, but we got rid of it. And my mom actually got me my first little flip cell phone when I was in second grade because I was walking myself home from school at that age. So I would go home and then I would flip open my little silver cellular, call my mom, let her know that I was home, and go about my day.
Wow. Second grade.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Second grade.
So second grade, you are 7 years old.
Yep.
8 years, 7. Yep.
Yep. 7 years old.
Drew, what kind of phone did you have when you were in second grade?
I had, was it Radio Shack? I think it was Radio Shack. Nope, Kmart. It was a Kmart landline. However, we had the 20-foot cord, so you could take it into a different room.
Yes, you could walk into the other room and close the door.
Yeah.
But if anyone wanted to listen in, they just pick up the other phone on the same line and they could listen in.
100%.
Yeah.
But you could hear the click.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd be like, get off the phone.
Exactly.
Or when it had been like an hour and 20 minutes and your parents were like, click, Drew, it's time to go to bed. Like, leave me alone, Mom. Talking to my friends.
Exactly.
Brant, you?
We had 2 landlines that were corded phones in the house. So if you wanted to make a call, you'd have to pick up one of those. At some point, I don't know if it was around second grade or third grade or fourth grade, we got a cordless phone. Landline again, without a cord on it. Long antenna that would come out, and you could talk on it that way.
Yep.
And the antenna was a lot of fun to play with, and eventually it'd break, and then we'd get yelled at. So...
Yeah, the antenna was bound to break, and but I remember the cordless telephone sitting on like the kitchen or the living room table.
Yeah,
and it would ring, and then you could like push a button, but you had to always put it back on the receiver overnight because otherwise it would die. It never had that much battery.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So Nicole, this is why you're here.
Okay.
Yep.
Because your experience, right? Your experience is going to be fundamentally different than ours, and this is why you're here. Drew, go ahead.
Yeah.
The cell phone, the mobile phone, or we'll call it today the phone, has come up as this thing that is, or it can be used as this distraction. And it actually blocks the ability to listen to each other. And we've utilized it as an example throughout the history of this podcast.
Yeah.
For the sake of this conversation, we're going to talk about the late 90s, early 2000s of the cell phone, not the smartphone. The cell phone was that it became popular because you could talk to anyone from anywhere at any time.
Yep.
And that, we just talked about how we got the really long cord, which was super cool and convenient. But now you can do it whenever and wherever. And that was a really big deal because you could talk to your friends and you could listen and you could talk and you could have conversations.
And you could walk to school, and if you needed to talk to someone and call your mom, you could call. We didn't have that before.
And then we talked about the smartphone. Call it circa 06, 07, something to that extent. And from that point forward, Brant and I kind of looked at each other and went, well, now this is the ultimate conversation killer.
Yeah.
There is no more listening. Now we reference it as this device that blocks and prevents us from listening. And this is what launched us into this topic. But that's just us. We're in our mid-40s, so let's get an expert in here because that's just us. Is it really a blocker of communication, a blocker of listening? So that's where this whole episode came along, because we could sit here and talk for 45 minutes about how the cell phone doesn't allow us to listen. But then we're like, I think we're wrong. I think we're actually wrong on this. Brant, are we wrong?
We could be wrong. I don't know. What do you think about this, Nicole? What's your reaction as you just hear us talk about this?
I would definitely say that in like a physical social setting, I would definitely say that the smartphone, has definitely like decreased human connection and human communication on like a daily basis, especially with that like physical face-to-face contact. I would say that the phone has given me, I think, and you guys obviously know this, has given me like more reach and more connection with people who are not physically in front of me, and things that are not physically in front of me or happening in front of my eyes, which I think is a really interesting, and I think that's a really cool thing that the smartphone has done for us. But again, the face-to-face interactions with people have declined in quality and amount and quantity. And I see it every day, especially when people, like if we're working in our office together and I go do something and I'm upstairs and someone else is downstairs, they're not going to come and find me. They're going to shoot me a text message and say, hey, where are you? I want to talk to you. Or, hey, I have this question here. Can you give me an answer? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that's just like an everyday example in my life of people just using their devices to not necessarily like on purpose cut down on like face-to-face physical connection with other humans. I think it's just more like of a convenience, or seems like more of a convenience to people.
Yeah. So there is an enhancement of, instead of me having to get up to go find you, I can just message you. You can get that message wherever you are and message me back.
Yep.
Without having that device, it would make it a little more challenging to have those interactions in that sense. And then you also talked about too, which I think Drew and I were kind of pushing on, was the distraction piece of how distracting these can be from having that FaceTime with each other. I find myself a lot of times just like reaching down just to make sure it's still there.
Yep.
Or I'm like nervously, like it's a fidget where I'm using hand gestures on a podcast right now. But
will you describe for me exactly what you're doing?
I'm holding up my cell phone and flipping it around, and I'm looking at it, and I play with it like it's a fidget toy in a sense, where it's mindlessly opening up apps or looking at pictures, and I need to consciously have to remind myself to put the thing down and like look at the people that I'm talking with. So that's that distraction piece. Do you get distracted, Drew, by your phone?
No, not at all. Never. One of the things you said, and I want to pick it apart a little bit, you said, yes, it limits the face-to-face, which is I believe you still hold in high regard.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it also allows you to have more reach to more people than ever before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you're conscious of, or is that something that it's just is what it is?
I would say it's pretty conscious for me personally. I have been working in camps for a long time, and usually camp people have a lot of people who are international, and you become close with them, you build relationships with them, and you want to continue your conversations once they move back. And so I feel like it's pretty conscious for me to be able to be like, oh, I haven't texted my friend from Colombia in a while. Here I go. I'm going to text my friend. I'm going to say, hey, I miss you so much. Like, how are you doing? I'm going to FaceTime them. And I think that it's a pretty conscious effort for me. But I will say as well, it is an unconscious effort. So me and all my college friends, we all lived together for 3 out of the 4 years of our college time. And so we're all very, very, very close. I consider them to be like my chosen family. And so a lot of that is also unconscious because we're in like 5 or 6 different group chats that we're like constantly communicating throughout the day. And so in that regard, like, yes, we are super connected, but it's also the same feelings of I'm not seeing these people every day. And I'm unfortunately one of the ones who moved away from Iowa, who moved out of the state and is one of the farther ones away from everybody. So I still even feel like with that constant connection, it still feels like a disconnect because I'm not there.
Are they there?
Yeah. So most of them are like in the same area, a couple hours away from each other, still in Iowa or like Missouri. But then there's a couple of us kind of scattered throughout. And so most of them are still like together. And so, yeah, they kind of get that more connectedness.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you get this connection where you said multiple times a day sometimes too, where you're still in contact with them, even though they're miles and miles and miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Again, okay, Drew, I'm going to do it. When I was in my 20s,
There it is.
Back in my
we
day.
didn't have that, right?
Yeah.
They may have been on my mind if I wanted. There was this thing called email, and you could email people, but you'd again have to sit down at a physical computer that was somehow connected to the internet, most likely not through Wi-Fi, and you could write an email and then hear back. There's also like group chats, right? Like AOL Instant Messenger, ICQ, or you name it. I'm dating myself horribly. This is just embarrassing.
No,
this is amazing.
You're all good.
It's like a time capsule.
But that idea of having, because I have that now too with my friends, right? Where I've got different group chats with different groups of friends, and we are instantly drawn back into that relationship and into that connection. And I think that's part of why I'm always grabbing towards my phone is because, like that's my pathway to this community, to this family, to this connection of all these people.
Yeah.
So for that group of friends that's been in college and on, what was it like before college? Did you have a similar thing with texting friends or keeping in touch with friends or?
Yeah, actually, I would have like different pockets of friends, obviously like all throughout high school and everything. 'Cause high school's whatever. And so I feel like I would still have like those conversations with people, and still have that like connection with people, especially like working in camps during the summer. Like usually we're all together for 3-4 months and then we all go and do our own things. And so that's just kind of been like a constant like theme with my cellular experience with my phone is I'm always in a group chat with people who I'm not like physically currently with in my little perimeter.
They're always with you in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
One of the words Drew and I have got written down is nomophobia, N-O-M-O phobia. And the definition literally written out here is anxiety about not having access to a mobile phone or mobile phone services. I've experienced this before. I'll go on a walk with the dog and I'll leave my phone behind. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, where's my phone? Right. Just kind of checking my pockets and looking for it. Have you experienced this phenomenon before? Have you heard this word before?
Oh, yeah. I haven't heard the word before, but I definitely have experienced that. I actually experienced it about 20 minutes ago because I was rushing around. I texted you I was having a crazy morning.
Yeah.
And so I was running around trying to find all my devices. And then I looked down by my purse where my phone is usually, and it wasn't in my purse. And I was like, oh my gosh, where's my phone? Like I need to hop on this call in like 2 minutes. Where's my phone? So I whip out my Apple Watch that I have conveniently attached to my wrist and I ping the phone and it's not ringing. So I run upstairs, look in the car. Oh, it's there. Instant relief. I feel like that is also like a unique thing because I knew that I needed my phone to record my audio, but also it's like a daily thing. Like, oh my gosh, where's my phone? It's not in the same 2 places that I keep it on my persons. Where did it go?
Where did it go?
My parents are late 70s, 80s. They have cell phones. They have smartphones. I'd say they utilize them for calling people
Yep.
and texting people. That's about it. And then you get to me and Brant, and we call people and we text people, and then we utilize, I don't know what, Brant, half a dozen, 10 apps on a regular basis. Nicole, how many times do you call people on your phone?
I don't know. I would say usually my parents call me, or I call them once a month.
Yep.
Or sorry, not once a month, once a week. Call the grandparents once a month. I really don't call people very often. If it's like a work thing, I do, like, and it's urgent, I'll just call.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just because that just tends to be the easiest thing to do, especially in like a time of urgency. Be like, are you going to pick up the phone or not? Because if I send you a text message, you may or may not see it. So,
so you can see the pattern that in 20 years, there may be no more phone calls.
Yeah.
Or phone calls are very, very minimal.
Yep.
Because when we are the grandparents, when Brant and I are the grandparents, you could probably just text us and we'll know that that is probably equal to a phone call. This phenomenon, to me and to old people, is bizarre. And it goes back to the original question of this thing that is the cellular telephone, the mobile phone, or the phone, in its very relatively short time frame, will not be utilized for phone calls. Is that weird? That's bizarre to me, Nicole. Is that weird to you?
I wouldn't say that is anything that's not expected for the future. I would say, like, even in my time of having a phone, when I got my first phone, like, that's all I used it for. I used it to call, and I used it to text sometimes, but it was only connected to, like, my parents or, like, my grandma. And I would call those people just because those people were used to calling me. And as I've gotten older, my call number has definitely decreased just because it's not really necessary anymore.
Human to human, face-to-face interaction is kind of this three-dimensional piece. Brant and I talked about this nonverbal communication as being a large percentage. The percentage can be debated, but we'll call it a large percentage of communication face-to-face. A large percent of it is actually nonverbal.
Oh, yeah.
So it's how you look, it's how you feel, it's the environment that you're in, are your arms crossed? My arms are crossed right now. Is that different than blah, 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 blah? So we'll call it kind of that three-dimensional piece. When you have a phone call with somebody, you can hear the inflection, you can hear the emotion, you can hear the distress, you can hear the excitement, you can hear these different things. So when you're listening, both of those examples involve listening. Even though your eyes are going to help with that, or your ears are going to help with detecting all of the other things. So if Brant and I run into each other and he goes, "Hey, Drew, how's it going?" And I go, "I'm fine." And I shrug my shoulders, and his eyebrows lifted up when he was excited to see me. Like, all that changed. It was a little bit different. And then when he calls me on the phone, he goes, "Hey, Drew, how's it going?" "I'm fine." And he can't see that my shoulders are shrugging, but he can hear that something's okay. Like, oh, what's going on? When you text somebody, or when you snap somebody, or when you do whatever in the hell it's called these days, and you say, "Hey, how's it going? I am fine." How does the human being, in that relatively short time frame of the human interaction to the phone interaction to the no more listening has been removed from the interaction. What do you do to listening? Is listening disappearing? I have my answer, but Nicole, I want to hear your interpretation of what I just said.
I would definitely say that there's, like, a decreased amount of listening that happens. I feel like there have been several times in my life where I have gotten this, like, long paragraph of a text message, and it is, like, a very serious, like, conversation. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I get these like long text messages, like apologies, or like someone just wants to reach out to me and let me know that I did something that, like, offended them or hurt them, my first instinct is that those should always be conversations over the phone. And if they're not like directly in my if they're directly in my vicinity, like they need to be a face-to-face conversation. If it is it's like one of my friends in Iowa, like let's FaceTime so I can see you and so I can hear you. I think that I think me as a person, I value listening to other people, especially in those like very serious conversations, but I definitely feel like the listening has decreased from one person to another, especially just because you can't read people as much. And so a lot of it is just assumptions about people and assumptions about what they mean and like what their tone of voice might be, especially through a text message. And when those big long text messages come through, I find myself like reading it multiple times and like dissecting it piece by piece because I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, like, did I miss something? Is there one word in there that's a critical word? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is there something in there that I'm missing? Is there something in there that's like super important to the conversation that we need to be having? Like, I want to make sure that I'm fully understanding like what exactly you are saying, what exactly you mean, and try to understand how you're feeling or understand what you're trying to communicate to me the best way that I can. But I think genuinely, listening has decreased because there have also been times where, you know, I'm the one sending that long paragraph of a text message and I just get back like, okay, or something like that. And you're like, okay, well, I'm sorry that I spent that much time, like, as a human being, like, trying to craft this perfect message that tells you that I'm mad at you, but it's okay. I want to work it out. And then I just get back like an okay.
Yeah. Like, what?
Okay, maybe we should have talked about that face to face.
I want to agree with both of you, but I also want to push back a little bit and say there is a positive part of this. So yes, I agree that in-person stuff is probably where we're going to pick up and convey and read the most info. Mm-hmm. I also do that. We'll FaceTime someone instead of call someone. What I've noticed with a number of people in my life is I see more emotion expressed out of them through text than I get from them in person. I'm not going to name names, but
I would agree with that.
There are people that they will text me stuff they would not say out loud. They will use emojis to express emotion that they would never say in person or express in person. So I get a different layer. I get this avenue of them opening up a little bit more than they would in person. And I also think this is a reason why sometimes people shy away from that face-to-face conversation or from FaceTime. And that is, it is a safety piece. I am safe behind this phone. I can put out whatever I want to put out, and I don't need to receive back whatever I might get back. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just recognizing that that's there. It is a little bit safer sometimes to, send a message out to someone than it is to call them and know that they can immediately respond to me.
I was just going to say that I also feel that way too, especially if I feel like it's just more like of a comfort thing for me, not only because not because I don't have to talk to the person, but because I can like fully think about what I want to say and like fully write down everything that I want to say. And I organize in a different way. And like, I can just make sure that I'm like getting my point across in like a respectful way and like laying out my perspectives and doing whatever and saying this and showing my emotions that way as well. So yes, it's also like a safety net of like, okay, well, like I'm just going to send you this little message here so you can't get mad at me to my face, because if you get mad at me to my face, then I'll be very nervous later. Sure. But even then, when you send those like kind of like bigger, longer, more important messages, it's still like okay, I'm going to check my phone every 3 seconds to see if you read it and see if you're responding. See if you responded. Yeah. So.
And there's a nuance here too, right? Because yes, it might feel more safe sometimes to send that message, but we're really missing out on that opportunity to have that face-to-face time. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's bad, but that we are also maybe missing out on the resolution that could come from that face-to-face time. So it's kind of like knowing when to use it, when not to use it, and how to use it.
Yeah.
I am at an age that if you're going to have a tough conversation, whether it's over employment, whether it's over a relationship, over it's, a friend said something, it is number one priority is in person. You have that. If that is possible, then you do it in person, period. If in person is not possible, then it sure as shit better be over the phone. We need to have as close, or FaceTime, whatever. There needs to be a two-dimensional something where you can see me, you can hear me. I need to do that. Period. Is that okay now? Is it just okay and I need to get over it? Or is it still not okay?
I mean, honestly, it is just the way that it is. I think that there are some circumstances where it's okay. I think there are a lot more circumstances, and for me personally, where I don't think that that is okay. I think that there's so much to be gained from like physical face-to-face contact and having those conversations. And I just feel like sometimes it's just really petty to do it over text message or over the phone, or especially over text message. Text message is the one that gets me the most. I work with a lot of young people and they text me, and maybe that's my fault for being so available on my phone to text. But I feel like there are sometimes like, I just like, why are you texting me this? This is highly unprofessional, and like, I would love to hear it from your face, or like, just give me a call. Yeah. I just feel like it is the way it is. I don't feel like you need to shut up about it. I feel like you're allowed to feel what you feel about it. I think you just kind of have to understand that it's just kind of the way that it is right now.
So I can keep preaching this. I can keep preaching that you need to have those conversations in person or via phone at minimum.
Because there are a lot of
write that down, please. Make a note. Please make a note.
We're also recording it
because I'm going to.
That's okay. Also, like on the internet, people will get on the internet and be like, I'm so sick of the internet. I'm so sick of people texting me. Like, why don't we just hang out? Or when we do hang out, like, why are you just playing your video games? And I don't want that. I want real connection. I want genuine connection. I want this. I want that. You have to start at a place where you have to want that for yourself and like truly like model that for yourself. Otherwise, you're not really going to get anywhere.
You've got to model it. I want to go back to your role as in youth development. You are a people manager and you also run youth programs.
Yep.
You mentioned the interaction that you get sometimes with employees via text. What are you seeing today? Because it sounds like you were able to just then, offer some coaching and feedback in a meaningful way. Like, hey, this is one of those things where we talk in person about that, right? You're able to help guide that person in that direction. What else are you seeing?
Now that I'm in a supervisor role, I'm in a people manager role, and my staff are now like using their phones for the pictures and the research and the music and the things. And it's fine. It's okay. And then there are just some times where it gets to the point where you just need to go up to them and just, hey, I need you to put your phone away. I need you to be present. I need you to be engaged, because you're not. Because I'm looking at you right now and you're not. And that's not what is expected of you. So I feel like, and gentle reminders are just kind of, with the staff that I have, they're usually like, oh, right, sorry, my bad. I go do these presentations for the groups that are coming out to the place that I work at. And I say like, oh, we don't allow phones. I always get like boos and groans and things. And I say like, well, we're not trying to isolate you, or we're not trying to cut you off from the outside world. Like if there's anything happening that at home that you need to know about, then your adults will call our office and we'll let you know and we'll get you to where you need to go if need be. We just want you to be like unplugged and enjoy your experience and be fully immersed in it and not be distracted. Once they get there, they don't usually have too many things to have qualms about.
But right there, it almost goes into that nomophobia we were talking about before, of there's that fear of, oh no, I'm going to miss out on something. And it could be something as urgent as connecting with a parent. That is my safety line. This is how I know to communicate that I need something. And without that there, what do I do? That's a hard thing to manage.
The number one thing that they request is, can I just call home? Or I have a watch that tracks my location and lets me call my parent. Can I bring that to camp? No, you're perfectly safe here. And if there's anything going on, like, we will let them know.
I think that's a huge value in youth development, is how do we go without something and know that we can be okay? That is a huge thing. And it's not just with kids. I see it with adults too. When I'm facilitating with a group of adults, I still have to remind them, phones go away Phones are on silent. We're not looking at phones. We're focusing on what we're doing here together. And it is still very challenging sometimes for people to get distracted by that phone. Same for me as a facilitator. I was facilitating when Karen was pregnant. And at any day now, I was going to get that phone call that she was going to labor. So I had the phone up there with me as I'm facilitating, and every little ding or buzz or beep, I'm looking down on my phone. Anyone in the group, do they have their phones? No, but I do. So all of a sudden I'm kind of, playing this contradictory role, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm going to have a baby and I want to make sure I don't miss that. So it's something it's a whole different level of things that we never had to manage before. And now we have to manage. And it sounds like it's worth it because you're still allowing people to have phones at work, and same within the workplaces. In offices now, I'm seeing it more acceptable to have your phone out, where rewind 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was not allowed to have your phone out or do anything like that. And now it's, no, you can have that out, but just learn how to be responsible with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, being a supervisor of young adult people who are in charge of even younger people, it is like such a hard boundary to walk, because I need to be available by my phone 24/7. If I'm standing up and having dinner and I get an urgent text message or an urgent phone call, sometimes I catch myself sitting up at the very front where all the kids and all the staff can see me. And I'm just like, beep, 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 beep. Got to respond to this super important thing. And then I'm like, oh, this is not what was expected of me. This is not what's expected of my staff. And I need to, next time, be more mindful and take a step out before I respond to this very urgent thing. It's a hard line to walk, especially when you're in that supervisor role.
Yeah. Drew, you are in this deep thinking state over there. I'm just watching your face. You look like you should be wearing a smoking jacket, drinking a snifter of brandy, being like, well, back in my day.
That was before the podcast.
It's 10 in the morning.
Okay.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
I have... Nicole, one of the things you said was, when you're in your work environment and you're working with youth and you're working with staff that are, your age or younger, you said, we want them to be present. And I think that this goes back to this idea of, it's not punishment, but it causes anxiety for sure, because now you're detaching yourself. And I've heard over and over again that really the majority of that detachment is not, well, what if my mom needs to call me? It's not that. It's, what am I going to miss out on? But the words that you use was to be present. We need you to be present in this moment right now, which means that we are still actively teaching and presenting opportunity for face-to-face, undistracted interaction. I think that is highly valuable. I am old. You think that is highly valuable. You are not old. But to the 14-year-old, the one that's 10 years younger than you are, Nicole, is that valuable? For
me personally, when I was 14, nope. I didn't really care about being present, especially at home. I got my first iPhone 4 when I was 14, and I begged my mom for this iPhone 4, and I got it for my birthday. And I just remember the rules that were originally set were, Nicole gets to use her phone. I can take it to school. I would use it as music on the bus. I would take it to school, and our school policy was put it away during class, but you can have it with you. And I think that I would just keep it in my little pencil pouch. And then when I got home, I would do my homework, and then I would scroll on whatever social media that I wasn't supposed to have. And then the rule was I'm going to put this away at night, and I'm going to plug it in on the kitchen counter before I go to bed. And I just I never really cared about being present. And my mom at the time would call me out on it and be like, you're always on that phone. You're always on that phone. You're always on that phone. And then I'd be like, well, you're on your phone. You're on your phone more than I am. Because right now you're on your phone telling me I need to be off of my phone. What are you talking about? So I will say I was a little feisty back then.
Yeah, sure. What you see today then is the same idea, but it's it's a rule. You have to have policy. You have to, you have to enforce this thing with staff and with participants that are 10 years younger than you are to have them be present. Why?
Yeah.
Why? And I don't, can be a bit of a rhetorical question or a question for all of us. Why do we care? Why do we care if you have to be present or not? Well, I have an answer. Because it's still important.
Yeah.
Because
I would agree with that.
You cannot you can't just say, well, for the last 20 to, we'll call it 20 years, for 04 to 24. For the last 20 years, you can't say that all of these basic human principles, human interaction, human emotion, face to face, that we were so used to, that we relied on for thousands of years, can just be wiped off the table in 20. So when we talk about the smartphone, when we talk about the phone, the cell phone, whatever it is, this device that was created so that you could interact with people via phone conversation, anywhere at any time, that then evolved into the smartphone, which became this great distraction device. You can't just say, well, we're different now. Human beings are just different now. No, we're not. No, we're not. We have to build in opportunity to say, if you want to interact with humans, if you're going to have a tough conversation, or if you have an emotional conversation, or you're going to do something, you still have to do it face to face. But now what we have to do is have to have rules in place to promote that. You didn't have to do that 20 years ago. You didn't have to do that 15 years ago. Now you do.
Right. Those rules are personalized for everybody, because not everybody that is my age is going to have the same belief as I do.
Sure.
Right. Right.
The distraction is so much greater now, though, because again, thinking back to when I was 14, I think anyone as a teenager wants to disconnect from wherever they're at. There's a lot going on as a teenager. So if I'm 14, I'm going to withdraw or disconnect. Sure. Now, if you give me a small handheld device that I can communicate and connect with my best friends and share thoughts, ideas, jokes, whatever, hell yes, I'm doing that. That is so much more pleasing than actually being present. What a big challenge. What a big challenge that we have that we did not have before.
We have a podcast that's called I'm Listening, and we're talking about a phone that was developed for listening. When we say that we need to remove that device so that we're more present, or that you can listen better, be less distracted, are we now in a world that in order to listen, you must remove the phone?
You and your absolutes.
I love absolutes. Is that a true statement? Is that where we are today? In order to listen, truly listen, you can't have a phone.
What do you mean?
If you want to, if I want to listen, truly listen to my children, I put my phone down. If we go to an environment, if we're in the classroom, in order for you to pay attention or listen to the teacher, you have to put your phone down.
I'm going to go back to what you were talking about with multitasking.
Hold on. I got more. I've got more. If you want to go to a youth program, if you want to do youth camp, youth programming, something of that extent, you can't have your phone. Why? You need to be present. Why? Because I need you to listen. I need you to listen to each other. I need you guys to interact with each other. You have to put the phone down to be able to listen.
I'd go back to your multitasking piece before, that we can't do multiple things at once. We can only do one thing at once, right?
Yep.
This is looking at executive functioning skills in regards to where do we focus our attention, and how do we focus our attention, and how do we prioritize where we are focusing our attention. A smartphone is a great distraction that pulls us away from learning that ability to focus. So especially for youth, but I think for all of us, there is a lesson there to learn about, okay, where do I need to be paying my attention at this time? And how do I best do that? Putting the phone down is probably one of the best things you can do when it comes to needing to focus on something that is not on your phone. Final answer.
Was that an answer?
Yes, I think so.
I count it.
Nicole bought it. See?
So it's a distraction.
Yeah.
It's a distraction.
And I would agree. I would say that it is a distraction. And I would say that if you do need to be present, I say you need to put your phone somewhere that is not in your direct eyesight or your feel sight. If you can feel it buzz, that's just like looking at it or seeing it light up.
You get the same dopamine hit, feeling that buzz in your pocket.
Yeah.
You ever get the phantom buzz in the pocket?
Yeah, I get like ghost buzzes on my watch.
Yes.
Oh, literally nobody's. Nope. Oh, I just got another one. And that's why, like, I had an Apple Watch a couple years ago, and I accidentally lost it in the lake. But then after I got rid of it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so free. I'm not feeling this thing buzz on my wrist all the time. And now I have one again because I am trying to be more present and have my phone put away some more. And so I can look and see if it's urgent or not. Okay, it's not. I'm going to not even pick my phone up.
But we're training ourselves again. We're training ourselves in how we interact with this technology.
When we talk about the phone, what do we need to do? What could we implement right now? You listen to this podcast, you can implement it right now. In your opinion, Nicole, that could help us listen just a little bit better.
I feel like the first step in figuring out how to navigate the phone is to figure out what you value in terms of human connection. I think that if you just kind of do some reflection on kind of the things that we talked about, like how would I want this, what kind of setting would I want this like challenging conversation to be in? And how do I interact with people on my phone versus in person? And which one of those do I like better? You know, if it's one way or the other, how can I use that to kind of morph my beliefs and my conversations and the way that I interact with people and the amount of times I interact with people. So like not only thinking about the quantity, but the quality. And I think that that's just kind of a good first step, and being like, if you're going out to lunch with your friend and you haven't seen them in a while and you're just constantly on your phone, like what's the point of even going out to lunch with your friend who like traveled all that way to be with you? I think that that's just kind of like some internal reflection. And I think that that's a good place to start. Because like we said earlier, everyone's values are personalized, and everyone's views on the phone and society and interacting with people and calling, texting, FaceTiming, talking is all different. And I feel like that is just something that people need to be more aware of. I think that a lot of us get swept up, especially people in like my generation, just get really swept up in thinking that like the phone is the only way. The phone is the only way that I can talk to these people. The phone is the only way that I can hear about what's going on in the world. And the phone is the only way that I can get this information. So I just feel like the first step is just internal reflection. What are my values? How do I treat people? How do I interact with people? When do I interact with people? And do I want that to change?
I like that. And it's just being conscious of this phone in your pocket or the watch that's attached to you. Or like you said, if it's touching you, it's still a part of your life. Practice. And you don't have to be, it's not like, well, I didn't do well that one time, so whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. Just practice it a little bit. You can start practicing right now. There's a time and a place for it. But if you're going to value and be present and value the human interaction, put it away.
Yeah. I like that advice too, of just reflection, looking at your values, what's important to you, and looking at how you want to treat people. There's a grounding that happens with that. You talked about getting swept up in whatever's going on. It is taking that time just to pause and ground yourself to be able to do this. Because otherwise it can be really easy just to go. You know, as you're saying that, I was like, well, what kind of person do I want to be for a situation? Like when I'm with my kids, I don't want to be the parent on my phone all the time. Okay, how am I going to practice that better? And it's putting the phone down in the other room so I'm present with my kids. Otherwise, it's in my hands. If it's in my hands, they see it in my hands. They want to see what I'm looking at. And now they also say, oh, this is important. So I want to do that as well. So it's something I'm definitely practicing in my life.
Yeah. I think just like the internal reflection and then just putting it into practice in like baby steps. How am I going to fix this one part of my day? Or like even just, I think just being present and just realizing like how you use the phone and how you use the internet and how you use all your social media channels. And is it even benefiting you? That's a big question, especially like for social media, but is it really benefiting you? Is it benefiting you to be super connected to everything that's happening in the world right now?
Yeah. Awesome. Nicole, thank you so much for your time. This is great having you here, not just only having that experience of having a cell phone by second grade, but also as a people manager of young people and as a youth development professional. You've got multiple lenses on this issue and a great fresh perspective on it. So it's awesome having you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was super fun.
Thank you.
All right. That was good.
That was great. I have a takeaway.
What's your takeaway?
I have a takeaway, and my takeaway is that she used the word values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a tool. How do your values interact and intercept with this phone?
Mm-hmm.
How do your values intercept and interact with social media? How do they interact and intercept with what needs to be a phone call, what needs to be a FaceTime, and what can be a text?
Mm-hmm.
What values interact and intercept with it needs to be put away, and not just in my pocket, but like in the other room. This is not the time for it. This is the time for face-to-face, human, present interaction. And she used your word values. What are your human and personal values? And how does this device interact with you?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you allow it to do? I liked that.
Yeah.
Because I think that can help channel some of this.
Because you could pair that right back up and say, wait, does this align with what I'm want to be doing right now? Yes, okay. Or no, then stop.
Right. Brant, what's your takeaway?
Kind of like we were saying before with when we closed up with her was, what do I want to be for myself or for others in a certain situation? And to be able to be that person, going back to the values piece of how do I want to live this out, and recognizing that for how I do that. I think it's challenging. I mean, this is a new, like you said, 20 years now, we've had a smartphone. We're still really looking at the major implications that it has on us as a society. And it's a challenging one.
In the description of this podcast, you will find more information and a list of any of the sources that we used.
This podcast is created and produced by Drew Richmond and Brant Christofferson, editing by me, and the I'm Listening theme music by Drew.
That's me.
That's you.
Brant, I will talk to you later, my friend.
We'll see you next time.
Yeehaw.
Have a good one, Drew.
Bye, Brant.